Hi, this is Ned Siegfried from Siegfried & Jensen. As proud sponsors of BeliefCast, we hope you are inspired by Todd's weekly podcasts, which contain so many courageous stories of recovery and personal growth. Remember, it's not what happened in the past that matters, it's what happens in the future. We invite you all to work hard and be optimistic about your future. Enjoy today's podcast.
Welcome back. This is Todd Sylvester with the Todd Inspires BeliefCast. Thank you once again for tuning in week after week. I love you guys. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Siegfried & Jensen, Wasatch Recovery, Veracity Networks, and Hill Institute. You guys are fantastic. Thank you for believing in me. Because of your support, we're able to get this out to, many more thousands of people because of you. So thank you. And I also like to thank our previous guests who have been on. You guys are great. You're vulnerable. Your stories are amazing. And today's going to be no different. I say this a lot, I know, but I'm telling you, there's so many good people in this world, and today's no different. I'm joined by a really good friend of mine. I call him a friend, Chandler Turley. Chandler, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Todd. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah. So I've known Chandler, how many years has it been now?
I came through the house just over 2 years ago.
2 years ago. So for those of you who don't know, we're coming live from Wasatch Recovery right now. We're in my office where I used to counsel and help, life coach Chandler. And I got to see him at his worst, and now I get to see him at his best. And it's amazing the transformation this kid's gone through. And you guys get to hear his story today, and you will be blown away at what he's gone through, and then how he is we were just talking about this off the, not off camera, because we're not on camera. What would you say? Off air?
Off mic.
Off mic. And we were just talking about how he's just owned his story, and it's so beautiful to watch. Chandler, seriously, I was telling people today, Chandler's coming in to share his story, and he's like, yeah, he was telling us about it at the barbecue. He's so excited, and I know how excited you're to do this.
Yeah, I think for me, it's big just because my story, I was so ashamed of my life before, my addiction, everything. And, the biggest thing for me is just getting it out there, just talking. I think it bugs some people that I'll talk about, whoever will listen. So yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, let me give you a little background of Chandler. He was born and raised in Salt Lake City. He went to Olympus High School. Go Oly, right? He grew up in a small knit family. He had two brothers. He served an LDS mission in, do you say Auckland? Is that how you say it? Auckland, New Zealand. And then after his mission is when he started a battle with 10 years of addiction. And he's going to tell us that whole story. And what was it, a little over 2 years ago, like you just said, you came to Wasatch Recovery, where you learned the tools, you put in the work, blood, sweat, and tears, where you saved your life.
Yeah.
We helped guide you. We walked the walk with you, but you walked the walk. And that's one thing I really admired of you when you were here, how hard you worked. It was really fun to watch. And, and you had a relapse in there, and you came back, but the way you handled the relapse when you came back, it was like you were on fire all of a sudden. It's like, who's this dude, right?
Yeah, it was something I needed, I think,
Yeah.
And I've even talked to my therapist, Sean, since I've left, and, he said that I needed that kind of wake-up call in between stays. I was out of the house for 6 days, and just it was really bad, but, I picked my feet up. I called you and Mark, and you guys just said, get back here. And
Absolutely. Well, Chandler graduated with a degree in sports medicine from the University of Utah, and he's currently getting his master's in clinical psychology with a goal of working in the field of mental health and addiction, which I can't wait for that to happen. You'll be fantastic at it. He has a beautiful wife, and him and his wife started a charity called Spread the Warmth, where they collect socks every November and pass them out to the homeless around the Salt Lake Valley. And again, Chandler looks, if you saw, I wish we had a picture before and after, what you looked like back then to now. And it has nothing to do with weight. You've lost a lot of weight, but more so just the glow and the light you have back in your life. It's so fun to watch. So why don't we start off, Chandler? Just kind of tell us where you grew up, about your family, and some things about your childhood so we get to know you.
So I grew up just kind of in East Mill Creek. I was the middle of three kids. So I had one older and one younger brother. But I also grew up surrounded by a lot of extended family. My grandparents lived two doors up.
Right.
A lot of second cousins, aunts, and uncles around our neighborhood. It was joked as the compound, just because everybody was a relative somehow.
Right.
So super blessed in that way. Huge neighborhood barbecues with the whole family. I grew up. My household growing up was very like emotionally closed off, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
I had a father who has worked in law enforcement his entire life, but his dad died when he was 8, and so just a lot of, we just didn't talk a lot about kind of the emotional things, but we did everything together. We drove on all of our trips, so we spent a lot of time in cars and driving to Canada and the beaches and everything. And our family, we were super close.
Yeah. I think that's pretty common in families where, you're close, you're doing good things, and it's, you've had a good upbringing like you're mentioning, but it's rare when you hear families that are getting into the emotional things and digging deep and really talking about hard topics and conversations and things like that, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And, we're still we're working on it. My addiction, I think, is still kind of the elephant in the room. But we try.
Yeah. Building that trust back, right? It always takes a minute. And then communicating is also one of the keys. So, just thinking of your childhood, what were some of the lessons that you've learned as, growing up that maybe even help you today and maybe even helped you get to where you're at now?
Yeah. My dad was always a huge example of hard work. As I mentioned, he worked in law enforcement. He still does. Works for the Department of Corrections. My mom always worked. So just that example of having a good work ethic. My dad worked multiple jobs. He cleaned buildings to give us the best that he could. Yeah. But he always showed up to sporting events, and you just could tell that they cared. And seeing that loyalty was huge, and that's something I still carry with me for sure.
Yeah, love that. And I can see that, like when you came through our program, you were a hard worker. That was one of the things that probably stands out the most with me, is just seeing how hard you worked. I mean, if I remember right, were you res pres?
I was at one point.
And I remember just the way you ran the house. And for those that don't know, when someone comes to Wasatch, there's 16 people typically in a house. We have 2 houses. Chandler was in one of the houses, and he became the res pres, which meant he got to run the house. He made sure people were, getting where they needed to be on time, getting their chores done. He's holding people accountable, and you just took the reins there, dude, and became a leader. And that's one of the reasons why we do that, is we're trying to help people learn that they can be a leader. And you did a really fantastic job of that when I watched you do that.
And that's something, even what I learned in that role, I've kind of carried with me to work now. I manage the meat department at Harmon's, and just having to kind of delegate and make sure the stuff gets done. And definitely learned a lot of good life lessons while I was here.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, we mentioned that you went on a mission, and when you came home from your mission, you mentioned that was like the start of your tenure of struggling with addiction. And you don't typically hear that. I came home from my mission, and you usually hear, well, I did all these things, and obviously this led down a path of addiction for you. Talk about what happened, and just take over here and share us your story.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like growing up, I had a group of friends. We were all super close. There was 5 of us, and we did everything together. And back then, if you would have said, you're going to be an addict in 6, 7, 8 years from now, I'd have told you were crazy. We never talked about drugs or alcohol. We never even thought about doing any of it.
Right.
When I got home from my mission, I was introduced to a girl who is, how do I explain this? My little brother's wife. It was her cousin. Okay. And so she introduced me to her cousin, and things just clicked. We dated for a little while, ended up getting married about 8 months. So I was home about a year before I got married. But she had kind of experimented with alcohol and marijuana and stuff when she was in high school. And she just kind of planted that seed of, kind of curiosity. We would text about it every once in a while. And one day my older brother got a hold of my phone and read through all of our texts. Took my phone to my dad and said, this is kind of what they're talking about. And, of course, he's going to be concerned. Yeah. But I was always kind of the rebel as a kid. Me and my dad always didn't get along. We butted heads. Yeah. And so he sat me and my soon-to-be wife down and just laid into us about alcohol, and it's not a good idea. But of course, me being a stubborn kid, I just shut down and got super defensive and angry. And I think that was kind of the moment where I said, okay, I'm going to do this. And so the first night I ever drank was the wedding night of my first marriage. Oh, wow. And we went on our honeymoon up to Park City. She wasn't of age yet. She was only 19. So we stopped at the liquor store in Park City, and I bought a bunch of the nasty I didn't know what I was buying. I'd never been into a liquor store before. Right. Bought the charcoal filled, just gross stuff. And I actually still remember the first time I ever drank, just got total blackout. I remember crawling across the bathroom floor, puking everywhere. And I still remember to this day thinking to myself, this is miserable. I'm never going to do this again. Yeah. And that resolution lasted all but 12 hours until the next day when we
start feeling a little better. All right, I guess I'll have some more.
Yeah, we'll just be a little more careful. But we all know how that goes. So at first we just kind of drank together, just the two of us on the weekends. Both of our families are very religious, active members of the LDS Church. And so we didn't really have any friends that drank or partied or did any of that. Right. So it started off slowly, just on the weekends at home, until, I just had to have more and more. I would get a job working in a restaurant, which is not a good place to work for anybody who's struggling or in addiction or just because that's where, most servers, are smoking weed or doing other things. And I happened to work at a restaurant directly across the street from a liquor store, which didn't help the situation. Yeah. And I would soon become the manager of this place. I'd be the bartender. And so I literally turned into one for you. We'll do two for me. I'd open the restaurant in the mornings, and I would, go back and I'd open the bar, and I'd take the tops off the counter of the liquor and pour them in a cup.
The meter that would tell you. Sorry.
And I would do, 90% alcohol and top it off with a little bit of Coke to try and disguise it. And so it very quickly turned into me being drunk 24 hours of every day. She had friends that smoked marijuana and introduced me to that, and immediately fell in love with getting high. It was something that I just enjoyed. I was able to relax and just took away all the cares, but in the meantime I didn't realize that I'm totally just distancing myself from everybody and everything that mattered to me in my life.
Did you feel sad or depressed at the time, or did you feel like, this is no big deal? I know I'm going hard, but I'm still okay. Or were you, what was your mental status at that time?
I think I was just so drunk all the time. I didn't really think about it. But now that I look back, I was definitely depressed. My marriage was miserable. She was very physically, verbally abusive. And so I just think, the stigma of divorce is not something I kind of wanted to do. So I fought for it and just kind of put my head down. I was working. I was going to school. So I just tried not to spend time at home. And when we did, we were, getting high and drunk. And so I didn't really think about it much.
At the time, sure. Mm-hmm. So now, obviously, you ended up getting a divorce. So did obviously things progressed and got worse and worse and worse. So just kind of take it from there.
Yeah. So we were married about eight years. Ended up quitting the restaurant to go through my program at school. I went through the sports medicine program up at the University of Utah. Great experience. Got to work with the football team up there, traveled, sidelines, locker rooms.
Oh, really?
And, yeah, it was a great experience.
Oh, cool.
But then again, college locker rooms and dorms are not a great place to be for alcoholics and stuff. And so that opened my eyes to a whole new world of drinking and parties and everything.
Right.
So after school, I would kind of struggle to find work. There's not a ton of jobs out there in sports medicine if you don't have a master's degree or kind of go that route. So I ended up getting a job working as a plumber for a local company, just a small family-run place.
Uh-huh.
And that's kind of really when, you know, the depression would kick in, and when I realized that, okay, maybe I am going through some mental stuff here.
Right.
But I worked 15, 16, 17 hours every day.
There's that hard-working guy there.
But, you know, got to the point where I'm driving my work truck drunk every day. You know, the first thing I do when I go into somebody's house to do a job was I'd go through their cabinets, their fridge, their freezer, looking for their alcohol. And to this day, I still can't believe I was never, ever caught, because I would take just swigs right out of the bottle. I'd top it off with water, put it back, and and it was really bad. And, you know, our vans had GPS's in them. I'd park a mile from the liquor store, and I'd park and I'd walk a mile to buy it and walk it back to my work truck, and
just so you wouldn't be caught.
Just so I wouldn't be caught.
Yeah.
And I did everything I could to hide it until I got home, and of course you smell and you think you don't, and you know, people start to notice. I had the boss pull me aside and say, "You smell like alcohol," and of course I heard him throwing some mints and just say, "No, I don't know what you're talking about." And
play it off.
Yeah. And so it was fine until one day we were doing a job. Well, I ended up becoming super close with one of the other employees there. We did everything together. We worked together during the day. At nights, we'd go to each other's homes and watch sports, and there was always around alcohol and weed, and so, you know, the more you get away from your addiction, or at least me, the more I realize how shallow those relationships were.
Yeah.
You know, they're very surface.
Yeah.
We didn't care about each other.
Yeah.
And so we were at a job together one day. I found a giant gallon of gin down in this laundry room, just chug after chug after chug. And I go to get in my work truck, and he's like, "Something's wrong." Tried to talk me into staying, and I wouldn't. So I get in my truck and I drive off. We're downtown. I'm driving down North Temple. Ended up rear-ending the car in front of me at the stoplight. Pushed her in front of the car in front of her. And that's kind of when I realized, oh crap,
I'm in trouble.
This is not good.
Yeah.
Try to hide it, run over the garbage can on the side of the street, throw away my bottle. Of course, they find it. Lucky thing for me is the mother of the car that in front of me that I hit had just dropped her 4-year-old off at preschool about 2 minutes before.
Dang, yeah.
And I pushed the trunk of that car into the back seat. That kid would be dead if he was sitting in that car.
Really?
Wow. So that's something I'm grateful for still.
Yeah.
To this day. But they take me over to the gas station, run a field sobriety test. I get put in cuffs. And this is when, you know, you start doing that inventory of what's going to happen. I got a dad who's the warden of the prison.
Yeah.
And I got a brother who's in charge of AP&P. And so things I just start freaking out. I go to an anxiety attack in the back of the cop car here. But they take me to the police station. They do a field sobriety test or breathalyzer test there. I blew over a .25, so I'm just way over the limit.
Yeah.
But they didn't take him to jail for some reason.
Wow.
So they just called my wife from the police station. She came, picked me up, took me home, called my parents and said, this is what happened. He was in a DUI. She kicked me out of the house. That next day, we were living in a little apartment in Murray. And that's when I moved back into my parents' home. And that was kind of the beginning of the end of our marriage.
Oh, okay.
But that just kind of made me super angry because my wife was in a DUI about 6 months before that. And I supported her through that. I paid all of her fines, everything. And as soon as I got mine, she just kicked me to the curb and said, we're done.
So you probably had a lot of resentment around
Oh,
that.
yeah. And,
yeah.
you know, things were already bad. But now that I look back on them, grateful because that was kind of the separation that kind of gave me the excuse to kind of start to end things.
Sure.
We kind of made the goal. This was in May to work things out, and you know, we'll see how things go. We'll reassess things come the end of the year. And this time, you know, I'm living with my parents. They have the, you know, that strict rule of no alcohol in the home. That didn't last long. You know, I had to have it. I'd hide it outside the house, or I'd, you know, obviously find places in the home to hide it. But me and my ex-wife would still kind of see each other. And one night she's super drunk and tells me she ended up having an affair with one of my best friends. Well, before all this took place, and it happened while I was in the house, just passed out drunk on the couch upstairs. And that's when kind of everything I had bottled up just turned to anger. I just started getting mad at everything. I'm mad at myself, at her, at God for letting all this happen.
Yeah.
I was just turned into an angry man.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That, you know, it's so, addiction is so devastating. Like, you know, as you listen to your story, just things, and they always progressively just get worse and quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Just, you look at where, you know, like you said, I mean, had that kid been in the back seat of that car,
I'd probably be in prison still.
Mm-hmm. And you're one of the best guys I've ever met. You know, it was interesting, you know, and you know my story. I got to speak at the prison because I know your dad's worked out there. And, you know, I will never forget when I was at the prison, I said to the group there was 120 of them. I said, the only difference between me and you is I didn't get busted. I didn't get caught.
Yeah.
You know, or I didn't have some really unfortunate, unlucky thing happen because when I was driving drunk or whatever. And I mean, to know that you would be in prison because of that, but you're a great guy. And I think everyone out there, most of them are just good people who had a mistake and something bad happened.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I can't believe I only got caught that one time. You know, I was driving drunk every day. So after all this, I ended up getting a breathalyzer put in my car.
Those are fun
because of the DUI and just the money that comes from having. I mean, that was $70 a month, even though I didn't have a license, but I had a car in my name, so I had to have this breathalyzer in my car. So I would end up failing some breathalyzer tests in my car, and they get reported every month. So you have to go.
So if you blow into it, it doesn't start because you've been drinking. Then it gets reported that you were attempting to drive while intoxicated.
Yep. And so
that's not good.
Every month you have to go to the place and they take it out. They run the diagnostics that show if you start it, if you fail a test, you have to wait 30 minutes, then you can retry. And if you don't retry, then that's a red flag to them as well. So I go, he's like, well, what was this? And I said, I had just done some mouthwash in the house and
they're
trying to make up
nice
excuses.
Try,
they hear that all the time.
Oh, I'm sure.
And so
nice try.
They send that into the courts, and that, ends up getting flagged and counted as a second DUI.
Oh, it did.
Mm-hmm. And so
because again, you're attempting to get to drive.
To drive. I'm sitting behind the wheel of a car with the ignition on, and so that puts a warrant out for my arrest. But in the meantime, through all of this, I end up meeting my second wife, and she's an angel.
Yeah, she's awesome. How did you meet?
I tell everybody Facebook because I swore I'd never get on Tinder, but we met on Tinder. But it's crazy. I knew her little brother and sister. I went to high school with them. she ended up going to East High School, but her dad was in an accident and was a quadriplegic, and they ended up moving into the neighborhood where her mom lives now.
Okay.
I walked my dog past her house every day, never met her.
Knew. Yeah.
So I ended up meeting online. And at first, I couldn't drive, and so I was embarrassed. Didn't tell her anything that was going on, but I just walked my dogs up to her house, and we'd walk around the blocks, through the neighborhoods, just walking my dog, and that's how we got to know each other. And we'd walk past.
At this point, are you still drinking and partying? And
I'm living with my parents by myself, so I'm now at this point I'm a closet, as they say, closet alcoholic.
So maybe not drinking as much, but you're still drinking.
Yeah, and it's more at night. I still have a job.
Yeah.
Everything and so we'd walk past my car, and I make the excuse that it's broken, it doesn't work. And that's why I don't drive. And
I'll pick you up on my bike.
Yeah. Yeah. And so she got into it not realizing, anything of what's going on.
Yeah. Because you didn't want to, it's kind of hard to start the conversation. Oh, and by the way, just so you know, I have an interlock in my car. Can't drive it. Here's the reason. It's hard to bring that up probably on the first time you meet someone.
And then, but just to tell you what kind of person she is, one day I got up the courage and I said, okay, I've been lying. This is why my car sitting there. I don't drive it because I don't have my license. And I explained kind of the whole situation. And she didn't blink. She just said, oh, that's too bad. It doesn't make you a terrible person. And we talked about it and we worked through it, and we just continued to just kind of work on our relationship. In the meantime, I'm at night at home getting drunk. And
did she know that at the time?
No,
do you think
she didn't.
You kind of hid that from her as well?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And it got to the end where she didn't really know till after we got home from our wedding. We got married down in Newport Beach.
Oh, cool.
California. And even there, my addiction was really bad. My parents had no idea. They gave me my own hotel room, at night, and I'd get on my phone. I'd Google the closest gas station. I'd walk 3 miles one way through downtown Santa Ana, which is not a friendly place at times.
Yeah, right.
In the dark, to a gas station so I could buy a bottle of vodka, and I'd walk home chugging it, and it's just something that I did. And even when I was living at my parents,
Did your parents think you had stopped?
Mm-hmm.
So here you are, you get the DUI, you get a divorce, things are kind of blowing up, you can't drive anymore, but yet people are thinking that woke you up, you stopped, but yet you're hiding it still.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to point that out because it's interesting how now everyone's thinking, okay, it seems like he's doing pretty good, right? I think overall, did they think you were doing pretty good?
I think so.
Yeah.
I had a great job that was going to pay for me to get a master's degree to teach special ed kids, and and then I ended up losing that job because when I applied, interviewed, and was offered the job to be the teacher instead of a para-educator. The State Board of Education reran my background check, and this was after the DUI and everything, and so they flagged it and said, sorry, you're on parole, or you're on state probation, and so you can't have this job. And so I would lose that job. I just continued to build on that anger of me just being mad at the world.
Yeah, wow.
And, so we got home from our wedding, and my wife found a bottle of, it was a Powerade bottle full of vodka, just a couple of days after we got home. And that's when she realized that, okay, there might be something going on here.
Gotcha.
So we checked we checked into Cornerstone, which is a county-funded outpatient facility. I would do day treatment there. I would get a little bit of time clean. I'd get 6-7 months. But still, we'd go on vacations, and I knew I wouldn't have to drug test, and we all figure out how long you have before it's out of your system, so you can kind of beat it. And so whenever I knew I was going to be away, I would find a way to somehow drink.
Right.
But I graduated there, and I still remember the coin ceremony. My parents came, her mom came, she came, and afterwards, the general census was among my family was like, "Oh, he did it. He's fixed." And I said, "I'm fixed. I'll show you." It's not that easy. This is addiction. You're never fixed. Only if I knew that, what I know now back then.
Right.
It's
never getting over this.
And so I did that. I was taken off probation, and that's when the floodgates reopened. I would find out, I didn't know I had the warrant out for my arrest. One day I get the call from my older brother, and he's over at my parents' house, and him being who he is, working for AP&P, he gets this, this thing that says, Chandler Turley warrant and everything. So my mom calls me crying, and I'm in the background, and that's when my older brother said, I had to separate himself from me because technically by law, if he sees me, he's got to arrest me and take me to jail.
Wow.
And
It'd
so
be hard to have your brother do that. Huh?
Yeah. And so that was kind of an eye-opening experience for sure.
Wow. So
I'd end up going to court. My wife's brother-in-law is an attorney. Incredible man. He represented me for free. Tried his hardest. Judge didn't buy it, and I ended up walking out of court in cuffs and going to jail. And that's kind of, as we talked about before I went on air, shame was my biggest downfall. Yeah. And I was totally ashamed of who I was. I truly believed I was a terrible person, and going to jail with my family, who they are, just kind of compounded that shame, especially when you're standing in line getting processed, and one of the guards goes, "Turley, you're the warden's son. He must be embarrassed of you that you're here." And I'm already trying to keep a low profile because you never know. I'm terrified.
Gosh.
And so that was kind of my lowest of lows.
Low points. Feeling like you let your whole family down. I do want to point out, you're talking about this shame. I want our listeners to, we talk about this a lot in treatment, where what's the difference between guilt and shame? And guilt is I did something bad. Shame is I'm bad. Mm-hmm. And I remember that, back when I was working with you, just this shame, meaning you had this feeling that you were just this bad person, right? And you just weren't good. And look what I'm doing. I'm blowing up my life. I'm a disappointment to the family, or whatever it was. I just want to point that out to our listeners to understand the difference. Guilt reminds us don't do it again. But if we hold on to guilt too long, it eventually turns to shame. But you had a lot of shame, meaning on some level, you just didn't think you were a good person.
Yeah, I thought I was terrible. And, guilt's good because it can drive you to change, which is what you want. And, but that shame led me to truly believe I wasn't worthy of love from my wife, from my family, from myself, from, God. I just, I wasn't worthy of any of that. And that just continued to drive that addiction. I remember my mom telling me she talked to an aunt and uncle and explained to them about my addiction, and that would just make me super angry because I was embarrassed. I didn't want other people to know what I'm going through.
Yeah.
And, so going to jail definitely just was kind of the culmination of all of that. Yeah. Kind of the driving nail that, okay, you are a terrible person. Yeah. Because you can't be here.
So you're in jail. How long were you in jail for?
I was sentenced to 10 days, but I only ended up doing 4.
Okay.
Got out, and, my, family didn't know, kind of how to act. They wanted me to come over for dinner the night I got home and walk in, and instead of my name, they say, "Hey, number," blah, blah, and just run off a number like that's my jail number. And, I laugh it off like I did everything. But that just
it was another reminder that you believed you were a bad person.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You're like, yeah, there's another reminder.
Yeah. And we talk about the bully, here, and that kind of, it's already running rampant in my head,
Wow.
And it's kind of interesting to think back on my life about, okay, where did this bully kind of start? And it's kind of interesting to kind of pinpoint, okay, this was something and this was something. And
yeah. I'd like to again point out to our listeners, when we talk bully, what we're saying is we all have this negative voice in our head, all of us, even when we're little. Every kid has it, every person, some worse than others. And we call it the bully because at times it feels like a bully, like it's pushing us around, telling us what to do, telling us we're no good. And that voice forms these belief systems about ourselves. And again, you felt you weren't a good person, but it was because of a voice that you're allowing to run in your head about, saying you're pathetic, you're no good. Look, you're a disappointment to the family. Look, who does this? You're got a brother who's an AP&P and a dad who's a warden and this and that, and you're going the exact opposite direction.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to point that out. Every one of us has that voice, and you and I did a lot of work around your narrative.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that narrative can either kill us or it can set us free, And again, I want to point out the work you put in, and when I think back, it's kind of weird that you're sitting here. Seriously, it's like surreal. And just how good you're doing. It's so awesome, by the way. I just love it. But the work you put around your narrative was so fantastic because you really did have a vicious narrative at the time when we first met. And again, we helped identify that. You started creating a different narrative, saying the new things. Took a long while, but I'll tell you, the difference between people who make it or don't is the people who put in the work. And man, you worked your butt off changing that narrative, and you're one of the most confident guys I've met.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
It was hard work, but it's worth every second. I remember as a kid, I was always bigger. I always weighed more than everybody else. A nickname that I had around the neighborhood was Chandlard. And so as a kid, you want to be liked by the older kids, so you laugh and you do it, so that, that started, okay, you're not good enough physically. I ended up quitting high school sports, my junior year, and, I had an older brother who was an all-state champion. My little brother is an incredible athlete.
Yeah.
And then there's me that quits, and, sports has always been a huge part of our family. My dad refereed college ball. I have a cousin who played in the majors, and and then there's me that quits, and so that's me. I'm not good enough. The word, being a member of the LDS church, worthiness is huge.
Yeah.
And I remember younger as, kids, I experimented sexually with, a close friend. And, every time I got, set apart in a new calling or ordained to a new office in the priesthood or something, that's in the back of my head. Okay, you shouldn't be doing this. You're not worthy.
Yeah.
And just carried that forever. And I carried that burden with me until I came through the house here. It was the first time I ever kind of got that off my chest.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it's just kind of fear of embarrassment or of repercussions. Most kids my age growing up would go talk to a bishop or a church leader, but I grew up in a ward where a bishop was always an uncle.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to go talk to him. Somebody's going to tell my parents or something.
Yeah.
And so something I just carried with me forever.
Well, that was another thing too. I'll mention you allowed yourself to get vulnerable when you were here. Again, you shared some what you just mentioned first time you brought it out when you were here. And again, I think that's another reason why you've been successful to be where you're at now, because again, now it's not weighing on you like it was before, right? I think it was Mr. Rogers that said, if you can mention it, you can manage it, right? And so you mentioned it. Hey, this is something that happened when I was younger. This is something that I went through, and I've never been able to say it until now. And again, that just showed, you were so willing to try to fix everything and change your life.
Yeah, and I think a big part too was just not feeling judged from the therapist here, my residents, or the other residents in the house, them just understanding and letting me just talk about it. And I think that was a huge help.
Well, and I think people who, go through a traumatic event like that, whether it's emotionally, mentally, sexually, or whatever, I think what most people do is they don't talk about it. They shove it down and they try to act like it's not there because it's so hurtful and what have you. Again, if we can talk about it, if you can tell someone that you trust, or, you come to a program like this and be able to process through that and see it differently, and, whenever I, back when I even heard you bring that up for the first time, in that moment, I just remember having this like more respect and more love for you in that moment. It's so interesting. I always feel that way when people get vulnerable like that. So again, that was another reason I think why you were so successful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that, just like you mentioned, I think having somebody you can talk to is huge. I remember when I left the house the first time, I went home having already planned my relapse.
Yeah.
I knew I was going to be by myself. We were at the grocery store on the weekend. I'm counting my money. Okay, I can buy this here. I'll have this much when I get home. Mm-hmm. And, instead, I've been through 30 days of rehab and I did so good. And the last thing I want to do is like, I'm thinking about relapsing when I go home. Yeah. So instead of bringing that out in group or to my therapist, I sat on it and I went home and, I probably almost died. And there's more than once where if I had more alcohol at home, I would not be sitting here today. Wow. And, and I'm grateful now that I did have to come back because I think I was a lot more vulnerable the second time around. I didn't bring any of that up my first time through the house. I just kind of put my head down. I went to work. I obeyed the rules. And it wasn't until I came back that I really kind of humbled myself and just said, this is what I need to do.
Yeah, this is where I'm at.
And that's what it took. And it was all thanks to you and Mark and Sean, my therapist, and Tina and everybody here that kind of helped just kind of put me in that right path.
No, well, I'll tell you, we're all very proud of you. I mean, I think, did you run 6 miles today?
Yeah. 6.5.
It's not Chan Lard, it's Chan Lean.
Yeah. They all say Chan Slim now.
Chan Slim, there we go. We'll use that as the hashtag.
Right.
But no, again, I just admire you. I mean, you look great, you sound great, but more importantly, just how you've owned your story. You've shared this a lot. You've come back to Wasatch. You share your story all the time. People are always talking about weeks after you've come, going, man, I love the way he just was so vulnerable with what he said. And I was so excited. I mean, we've been trying to get you on this show for a long time, and we finally hook up,
Finally got it.
Here we are, and I'm just excited because a lot of people are going to hear this. And, I want to ask a few more questions. Mm-hmm. So thank you for sharing what you have so far. And I know there's more to your story, but what do you think is the biggest lesson that you've learned through this whole process? And I know I'm asking you a tough question because there's probably 1,000 things you've learned, but is there anything that stands out the most for you?
I think one of the biggest things, we hear it all the time, especially in the world today, that it's okay to not be okay. Mm-hmm. And just having a wife who I can go to and say, hey, today I'm struggling. Yeah. Being able to talk about it is huge, because before I just would have sat with it and that just would have built and built until it overflowed, but just being able to say, I need some help. Yeah. And I love that. Just being able to talk about it. Yeah, sure, she might worry, which is her right, and I put her to hell and back. But I think the more, I'm able to pull her aside and say, I'm struggling, and that will just help continue to build that.
Love that. So I'm going to ask you a tough question. This one's tough. What do you love most about you?
I think the biggest thing for me coming through the house was you say this all the time, is who are you? And it took me a lot of work to figure out who I am. Mm-hmm. And, today I know who I am. And that keeps me going every day. You know, I know I'm worthy of love from myself and from others. I'm happy. I'm smart. I'm knowledgeable, and I think the biggest thing, you have a sign up here in your office that says you have the dignity to choose. And I tell myself every day I have the power and the dignity to choose, and I choose to be clean. And that's why I'm clean.
Love that, man. You just gave me chills, dude. You just made my day. Yeah, because that's a big thing I work on with my clients and with you is like, who are you? Because we walk around not knowing who we are, and then we just get lost in all these things that you weren't born to go blow up your life. That's not why you were born. But when we forget who we are, we get easily caught up in that kind of stuff. And again, it was kind of innocent how you got caught up in it, but look what it led to. But to see where you're at now, dude, it's exciting, man. I'm just excited for you. You and your wife have created a charity now called Spread the Warmth. Why did you guys do that?
Well, once again, it always comes back to what I learned here. Your friend Simon Sinek said that if you master the first 11 steps of AA, you're bound to drink again. But if you master that 12th step, you'll never touch another drop.
Yeah.
And throughout this, I didn't talk about that. My story's got so much. I didn't mention everything.
Sure.
My mom kicked me out of the house. I can imagine how hard that was for her to do. My wife kicked me out of the house. I lived in my car for months.
Yeah.
And, I've talked to a lot of people that live on the streets, and I've worked with Dr. Simpson, who's he's an addiction medicine doctor, and anybody that's homeless will tell you that socks is the biggest need, especially during the winter.
Yeah.
And so I got out of the house in October, and that November we started to collect socks. We put boxes at the sports mall, the gym I go to. I put them at work, at Harmon's. I put them wherever anybody would let me put a box. I would
here
put a
at
box.
Wasatch.
Yeah, we had one here, and we just started collecting socks and monetary donations. And that first year, we collected over 1,000 pairs of socks.
Wow.
And hundreds of pairs of hand warmers and cases of water and then we went downtown and we set up a table on the street and just passed out socks. And the homeless would come and they'd just grab socks. And
wow.
A lot of the residents here at the house wrote cards, and those cards were by far the biggest hit. People can read that they matter.
Yeah.
And it was just such a big hit. It was great for my wife's family to be there and to kind of see, how bad it is. We gave one guy a really nice coat. He comes back high without the coat, and knowing that he just sold that coat for drugs and everything. But it's good for them to see, okay, this is what life can be like. And
that's what it looks like, where it could lead to.
They ask, how does somebody become homeless? And, they see it firsthand. And
well, you were living in your car. You were homeless, right? It can happen to anybody.
It can happen to anybody.
Yep. Anyone.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we did it again last year. Last year was a little rough because of COVID.
Sure.
We still got hundreds of pairs of socks, and we weren't able to go pass them out anywhere, but they still got donated to the shelters and everything. So we're in the works again for this year for the third annual Spread the Warmth. We're gonna get boxes in more and more places.
Are you gonna put one up here?
We'll have one here.
Sweet.
At Harmon's, I just won the service award down at work.
Surprise!
So hoping that all the Harmons will allow us to kind of put a box there, and we're just going to try and grow this thing as big as we can.
I love it, man. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's awesome.
If there's someone listening to you right now, Chandler, who's struggling, who's in a dark place, who feels like they have nowhere to go or turn, what advice could you give them right now?
Just know that it's okay, and you're not alone.
Yeah.
You're not the only one that feels like that. And just find somebody, whether it's a spouse or a close friend or just somebody that you can call and just talk to. And you don't have to talk about what you're going through. Talk about football or whatever, and just get your mind off of kind of what you're going through, and that will start to ease the burden and, realize that, okay, things aren't as bad as they seem.
Yeah. Love it. That's great advice. It's beautiful. If someone wants to learn more about your charity and maybe, follow you and maybe you even reach out to you and ask you a question, how can they do that? What's the best way? We just started an Instagram for our charity. It's at Spread the Warmth Utah, all one word. And you can find me on Facebook. My Instagram handle is a little different. It's a Tongan word. It's Foilole224. Can you spell that? Foilole 224. Say it one more time.
Foilole, It means island candy. the sweet one.
He's the candy man.
So
he's sweet.
Yeah, that's the name was given to me on my mission. So
Okay.
I've kept it.
I like it. I like it a lot. That's very cool. Well, I can't thank you enough, Chandler, for spending some time with me today. I'm so grateful that we finally got to do this. Your story is amazing, not only because of what you went through, but just kind of how you're doing things now. And I couldn't agree more that when we give back and we do service, there's no greater high. There's no drug on the planet that can get the feeling that you get when you help someone like that. And so it's so cool that you're doing that. Spread the warmth, and glad that Wasatch will be a part of that again this year. And I'm grateful to know that I've contributed to socks, the 2 years that you've done it, and grateful to be a part of that. And so it's just cool that you're doing those things.
Yeah, it definitely feels good just to see how happy one pair of socks and a breakfast burrito from McDonald's can make somebody.
Exactly.
It's awesome.
It's awesome. Well, thank you so much, my good friend, and keep up the good work. And you're an inspiration to so many, and you're living proof that you can be in the depths of addiction and you can still figure some things out and get the help you need and overcome it.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is beatable.
Yep. Awesome. Well, there you go, folks. I told you, another amazing episode, another amazing interview with another amazing person, Chandler Turley. Please reach out to him. Check out his foundation and his charity. Get involved this year with him too, and reach out to him, ask him a question, send him a direct message, and we'll kind of go from there. But thank you for tuning in. Again, thank you to our sponsors. I love you guys. You guys are amazing. And Chandler, one last time, just thank you again for taking some time today out of your schedule to share your story.
It was a pleasure.
All right. Love you, brother.
Love you.